Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning on our EDC Coffee Chat. We are very happy today to be able to have Mayor Tom Ferrell from the city of Sequim and also Steve Lachnicht, the Director of Community and Economic Development for the city of Sequim, joining us today. They will be talking about what's happening in Sequim and some development plans, etc. So just a few housekeeping notes before we get kicked off. If you will please place yourself on mute so that we don't inadvertently hear any background noises. And then also, if you have any questions, if you want to raise your hand or put your question in the chat, we will go ahead and call on you if that's okay with Steve and Tom. So I'm going to, with that, again, thank you so much. We're honored to have you, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have the presentation, and just as we do in city council meetings, it's not good to sit here and just do a show for 20 minutes. So we'd like feedback as we move along. Just pop in there with questions and discussions, and that's the way we'd like to roll it. That works for everyone. So I will hand it over to Steve. By the way, I'm the mayor, so I'm the expert on what's going on in the city for every building permit. Steve's laughing because he knows I'm not, but I am aware of it. Steve and I talk quite often and collaborate, as well as with Matt, the city manager. So I'm going to let it go to Steve to start the presentation. Really encourage questions as we go along.
Okay, and just to confirm, you're seeing the presentation, colleague?
No, go ahead and press screen share.
Okay. Like that. Is that it?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Looks good on my end. Why I flipped it up there. Did she say she can't see it?
Right.
Oh, it's in that. We're working on it. Are you still there?
Yes.
Let me go ahead and say that I've been 6 months now with the city of Sequim, and you know, we got a small staff, but we got a lot of collaboration here, and I think this presentation will demonstrate that, because we get to interact with a little bit of everything.
And Steve, when you're finished, will you share that? Send the presentation to me, and I'll make sure it gets loaded on our website along with the video.
I actually already emailed it to you this morning.
Wonderful, thank you. And also I got a comment from Bruce. He's saying he's having trouble hearing. Bruce Emery.
Okay.
Colleen, is it on multiple screen share?
Yes, it is. And we tested it beforehand and it worked.
That was your problem, Colleen. You used up the one chance for it to work.
I know, I should have I should have kept it like that. Sorry, we had it working.
If you have it in an email, Colleen, can you just share it?
No, I don't know.
Oh, that's true.
I was going to start by just talking about generally Sequim and the area. I mean, most people on this call, I'm sure, are aware of the city of Sequim, but to recognize the fact that the city of Sequim is only 6.2 square miles, 6.3 square miles, and still at the center of so much activity for the entire Dungeness. I got some support coming in here.
Is that, can you see it now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Good.
All right.
Are we there?
And then in presentation mode,
Yeah, you could go to SlideShare if you want. There we go.
How's
That
that?
looks good. Yep. And so if you guys can speak up, I don't know where the mic is.
I think we're good. Okay.
Okay.
So here we are. We got the first slide. The second one now. This is what's happening in Sequim. We have current developments, affordable housing, the comprehensive plan periodic update, building permits, and code updates. Let's not talk about. First, I'm just going to look at this map a little bit. This is the city zoning map. And just to once again emphasize the fact that even though Sequim is a relatively small city, we serve a very large region. And of course, I think most people are familiar with the regional commercial that's on the west side of the city here, where you have Costco, Home Depot, and Walmart, you know, obviously serving the greater peninsula area. We have a pretty compact downtown, gridded area, and a real nice collection of restaurants and shops that cater to both local residents and to tourists. And then we have a greater community outside of the city limits. Obviously, that also depends on the city for their shopping, the parks, and recreation, those activities.
Steve,
Yeah,
I'm getting a few messages from people saying that they can't hear well.
It's not loud enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Is the mic on the
The problem is
the screen or?
room, so let's get him on his own computer. Let's get the man. Or something. We'll get the man. I think that's the problem.
Microphone on my end. Oh. Okay, just gonna do it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
You hear me now?
is that better? That
Yeah.
should be better.
Okay,
It was always.
a little bit of a slow start, but I'm gonna go ahead to the next slide to get moving along. Okay. What do I do? There it is. Okay, this is a map that shows some of the developments that are in different stages around the city. We have quite a few projects that have had preliminary approvals. And like, for example, this Jenny's Meadow to the west of 71 lots. It was approved for preliminary in 2019, but they haven't yet met their conditions to go forward. Bell Hill Estates just recently got an extension. That's 103 lots. Rolling Hills is the most recent approval we've had. They just got through an appeal process for their preliminary plan, and that's 215 lots. Legacy Ridge, Holmes B, and to the east, we have Mariners Outlook, all in this basically the same status. They've gotten preliminary approvals in the last couple of years, but they haven't moved forward with their projects as of yet. I put Lavender Meadows on here. It's an approved project, but it's been the site of most of our building activity recently. They've had quite a few manufactured homes being installed there. There's a little 8-unit townhouse that got approved recently for preliminary approval on Hendrickson Road. And then just prospectively, we have the Habitat project. They have not yet applied, but we've had a lot of conversations about the fact that Colleen Robinson would like to do I think a 40-unit collection of multiplex units on that property. And this is on the city website. If anybody wants to see the plans and the specific details about any of these projects, you can find this on the city website. It would be under the community development, and there's a current projects key there. Now, this is the building permit trends. The bars here represent 4 years, with blue being 2019 and the yellow kind of color being the current year. And what you see is single family permits
were close to 70, and then they dropped down to 50 during, I guess, the middle of the COVID period. They popped up to 70 again, but this year you can see they're only about half. We're at about 35 units. Now, manufactured, we only had like maybe 2 a year, and then suddenly you see in this past year we had like 30 of them, and almost all of those were in the Lavender Meadows project. We have had only like 1 ADU per year, and we had 1 duplex 4 years ago. So hopefully with the new multiplex ordinance, we're going to see more of those. This is an interesting look at just a monthly permitting. This is building permits. And, we don't have big numbers, so our graphs aren't real smooth, but you can see the single family is the blue line, and it kind of spiked in May. We had 10 permits in the month of May. The manufactured homes, we had 8 permits in the month of June. But what you see in July, August, September going out here is all of them are down. And we're not seeing any indication that that's going to change in the near future. We're definitely seeing a good slowdown in the number of permits for both single family and manufactured homes that are going out right now.
Steve, can you mention how long typically someone has after a building permit to begin construction? How that works?
With a building permit, you can start almost immediately. I mean, it's pretty quick. Within, after you receive your permit, and it's up to that in the builder to how fast they're going to go. I mean, some can knock them up in a few months, and some will take years, depending on how they go about it.
I'm just thinking that we're going to have permits in process where the delay in construction might occur because of the market conditions.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a few different market conditions right now that are at play. We have the inflation, we have the high interest rates, which are definitely discouraging buyers. And we also have some supply chain issues, the transformer issue. We know, I'm talking with PUD, that right now they can't get the transformers to enable people to go forward with these projects, which is a huge roadblock in terms of going forward. But I think it's the combination of all those things right now that's discouraging people from building.
What happens if a person has a building permit and all of these factors come to play, and they come to you and they say, hey, I can't get this thing started because PUD or this or that?
Yeah.
How do you react to that?
I haven't had anybody with the PUD, but we do have people that sometimes pull a permit and don't continue with it. And they have quite a bit of time. They have a year generally to make that decision. And then in the worst case scenario, they ask for a refund. I think we give them 80% back. I think we had one of those for a garage or something recently, but that doesn't happen very often. I haven't seen anybody get stopped getting a building permit, but I think most people know they're going forward once they pull it. I mean, I think it's more these prospective developments where you see the subdivisions that are stalled out there, where I think you see more of that effect.
I just wonder from a city point of view, if we're looking at a potential for being more flexible on that if the market really decreases in terms of the 80%. Is that something that the council has to vote on?
Like I said, I haven't seen any real indication that that's going to be a question. It's been very rare that we've had anybody ask for a refund on a building permit, but if it becomes something, we'll certainly let you know, and we can talk about that. Okay, moving on. The city has been attentive to the affordable housing issue. We've had a comp plan in place with housing policies. We've had council direction. All the council members have expressed an interest in pursuing ways to enable more affordable housing. We've been participating on the Colleen County Housing Solutions Committee. I've been there for several of the meetings, as has Sharice, and Lowell is our council representative on that committee. And this is not an inclusive list. I'm just highlighting a few things here. A lot of ideas have been thrown around. Of course, we had the multiplex unit zoning that we just got approved. We're trying right now to simplify the process for doing an ADU. There's kind of an extra step that I don't believe is necessary, but we're going to be bringing that to the council, I think, soon to address that issue.
Great.
I think we could do more to promote. Sure, go ahead. Oh, you gonna say something, Colleen?
Oh, I was just
We can
saying
do
that's
more to
great
promote
that you're
cottage
doing all you
neighborhoods.
can
Yeah.
to reduce
And-
any.
Sure.
Go ahead.
And what you're kind of looking for here is what they call missing middle housing. And this is sort of a national recognition the last few years in planning, we've had a lot of ways that the codes and the banking systems and the way we do construction that has just all favored single family development, and to the lack of seeing more of these multiplex type buildings or the mixed use type buildings like you might have seen in the older cities where you have a shop downstairs and a residence upstairs. These are all more affordable versions of housing that have been lost in our more recent developments in the last couple of decades. So we're looking for opportunity to try to encourage more of those types of things to happen. And what I see here for illustrations here, I show what might be a little cottage neighborhood where instead of having one single house on the lot, you have maybe 2 lots next to each other with 6 small units with a common parking and a common green between them. And this is a way to accommodate small homes. Some people call them tiny homes. I think it's better just to call them small homes. These might be, 800 square feet or something like that. And for, a younger person or a young couple, or even somebody who's an active retiree, this can be a very desirable alternative to the traditional single family lot. This is once again, just mentioning, October 10 is when the city council approved the multiplex housing. This is an example of what could be a triplex that could be built. And this is important because we now have opened up the entire R48 zoning, which is most of the residential zoning of the city, to have these multiplex units, that is duplex, triplex, or quadruplex units by right. So they can get a building permit and build one of these units on a lot. Now, there are some minimum lot sizes that'll limit the places where you can put them, but there's still quite a few places. It's mostly on the south and the eastern sides of the city where I think you find lots that are large enough to accommodate the multiplex type units.
Steve, I have a question about that,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
So if you, if a homeowners association has CCNRs, codes, covenants, and restrictions that most of them state single family units only. I understand the city would allow it, but obviously won't be permitted under the CCNRs. So my question is, of the zoning of Sequim that's R4 to R8, how much actually is not restricted by CCNRs? Can you give a generalization?
I don't have it in this presentation, but I did prepare a map for city council that showed that. And what you find is that the downtown, the older downtown area, the lots are very small. So they won't be adequate for these type of units, and they're mostly built out. And then the communities, like you say, the developments that have been approved in the last 20 or so years, almost entirely have those CCNR restrictions that will not allow these units to be built. So what's left? There's quite a few tracts of an acre or a couple of acres, mostly south of the highway and on the eastern part of the city, away from the more developed areas, if you would. So this is where you see, if you went back to that map in the beginning, you saw the Habitat Project, which is on the south side of 101, just off the Sequim Avenue. And so that's where you're most likely to see these units happening. Now, there is an area called the Lifestyle District. I'll just run back to that first slide real quick. And this, in the north part of the city, the yellow area has always allowed these units. That's why right now we have an 8-unit townhouse that's currently under review under the current regulations before we did the multiplex thing in this area. But like I said, the places where you're more likely to see these units occurring are going to be in this southern part of the city or in this eastern part where you see these larger tracts of land that haven't been subdivided yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Let's go back to where I was.
And Steve, while you're there on that chart, I'm just curious, I guess it's the northwest. There's right when you get off the 101, that mustard colored.
Yeah.
I guess it used to be an airport. What is that zoning?
What used to be the airport?
I don't think there was an airport.
just
Well,
north.
there's two different areas here. This, the
Trying to orient where the.
this area here, you can see my arrow, the RC, that's the
Mhm.
regional commercial. This is Costco, Home Depot, Walmart. To the south of that, the EOA is the Economic Opportunity Area.
Right.
This is where the clinic just recently got built.
Yes.
And I believe the tribe is currently looking at most of that property right now.
Yeah, I'm talking over to the east, or over to the east, that economic development area.
Oh, the east side, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's the.
There's one more, the
down
mustard
south
color.
here.
No, right in the middle of town.
Oh, in the middle of town.
Yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
What is that
Downtown
one?
District.
No, the economic
Avenue?
development area.
Sequim
The
Avenue.
That's
EOA,
another
I think-
economic.
That one.
Another economic opportunity area. I had a phone call once from a woman that represented the property, but I haven't heard back from her. I don't have anything
Hmm.
currently planned for that, but it's supposed to be an area that encourages economic development type of a project. It could be a job producing type of business, and it could be mixed housing opportunities also.
That's
We haven't
owned
yet seen the
by,
proposal.
Janae Sparks, who owns
Yeah.
Airweather,
Good call.
All Weather Heating and Cooling, and it was formerly called the Burroughs property. It was the Burroughs Farm for many years, and they had proposed a luxury RV development, but that didn't meet the code requirements of the city. So I know they had purchased it and hoped to invest using opportunity zone funds, but I think that deadline has come and gone for them. And I saw that we have a couple questions in the chat. One is from David Heberlin. David, if you want to ask your question, feel free to come off mute. Otherwise, I can ask it on your behalf. But he says, what is the minimum land size needed to start these types of development subdivisions? And I think he asked that when we were talking about the missing middle. And
Sure.
you had said the smaller lots just aren't large enough for it.
Right. There's three different breaks. For a duplex unit, it's 9,000 square feet. For a triplex unit, it's 10,500. And for a quadruplex unit, it's 12,000 square feet. Many of your lots around downtown are only like 5,000 and 6,000 square feet. So that's why I said you probably won't see many of these popping up, even on redevelopment type opportunities. But you need those slightly larger tracts, which tend to be, like I say, around the edges of the more developed areas.
I think on a fill-in type area, you might have a potential for someone to acquire 2 lots.
Yeah, that would be the way it would
Then
happen.
you'd
But
then you'd be able to do that.
there won't be a lot of them, but there could be a few here and there. I would hope so. I mean, it would be good to mix them in
Or
actually.
do
And,
tear downs or something like that.
and there are existing duplexes and things out there that were built before, I guess, our current zoning standards. Moving on, the city
Did
is,
we get all the questions? Or was
Oh,
there
I'm
one
sorry.
more?
Oh,
Is there
well,
any other
there's
questions?
actually, I guess there was a comment, and Beverly has asked me to make the comment on her behalf. And she says affordable housing, smaller homes, multi-units, et cetera, typically need transportation and stores nearby. Most of the larger lots are too far or not walkable to the services that the city offers.
it's a kind of a chicken and the egg thing. I mean, obviously, if you have no population there, you're not going to have services there. But like I say, the more developed parts of the city are pretty much built out. I mean, we don't have a lot of vacant property around downtown and around where the bus routes are and things like that. But certainly, these aren't necessarily going to be affordable. I mean, like you can see these units in the picture here, they have garages and these people are going to have cars. Just because you build a multiplex unit doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be affordable by the official definition. We're probably going to see more moderate priced or maybe slightly lower than moderate priced units, hopefully in that mix. But in the spectrum of housing, the more diversity we can see in the housing, I think the better for the community.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna just move on. We're gonna have more time for questions in the end. But I just wanted to just highlight that the city is actively looking at other code updates. We did some process improvements earlier this year. We recently approved some changes to the water and stormwater standards for the city to improve those functions. And the multiplex housing was the most recent thing we done. We just took a retaining wall issue to the Planning Commission last night for a first review. That's just cleaning up some interpretation type issues that we've had in the past to make it more understandable as to when and how retaining walls can be utilized, especially as we get more into the southern parts of the city that have more elevation issues. I already mentioned the ADU process is an opportunity, I think, for some improvement. Staff's been looking at road standards and also the development review process is something I think that there's some opportunities there to hopefully streamline the process somewhat. I just want to mention economic development in the context of everything else. You know, we have this imperative to retain existing and attract new businesses to increase money being brought to the community. And I think jobs, I guess, is the quality jobs, you know, not just retail, some other types of industry you're hoping to see. There's been several attempts back in the mid-teens, I guess, by the city to make plans for this. The most recent being the update in 2016 plan. And it's ripe for an update. Things have changed a lot since 2016. We all recognize that. And I think we're going to be spending more time. There's an internal group that meets on that. We meet with Ms. McAleer on a regular basis and others to try to look for opportunities. I just put highlighting a few of the organizations we've been working with in different capacities here, the Chamber, NODC, EDC, of course. And also I want to recognize Jamestown Tribe. I mean, they are currently looking at a wide range of projects, both from a health clinic to more affordable housing, which I think would really add a lot to the city. And the big thing I want to end up on here today would be talking a little bit about the comprehensive plan periodic update. The comp plan is the umbrella document for the city. It really guides everything we do in many ways. The land development regulations that we adopt have to be consistent with that comprehensive plan. I mean, right now, there's some things that I would propose to do in the land development regulations, but I'm not able to because they might not be consistent with the comprehensive plan as it currently is written. So the comprehensive plan periodic update is an overhaul. It's a review of the comprehensive plan and hopefully an opportunity to improve some of those policies. It's due in 2025. It sounds like it's a long time away. But generally speaking, this type of an update takes from 1.5 years to 2 or more years for communities to complete. So I think we're going to be getting into this in January. This is just a quick overview of the comp plan as it's currently written. You can see the 11 chapters which implement the key objectives that are explained in the state statutes. But the primary focus is typically on the land use, transportation, capital facilities, but obviously the housing, economic element, all these things all interplay. And just to overview what that process is going to look like, we're going to start developing a scope of work to detail the steps in this process. It'll be brought to the Planning Commission. It'll also be brought to the City Council for approval. Along with that, there's a public participation plan, which is an important element of the whole process. It's a very intensive public participation element to creating this update. There's going to be consultants. There's some specialized analysis we're going to need, economic and land use and needs assessment, which go into how you implement how you intend to create your policies, that'll affect that. There's going to be a series of meetings with the Planning Commission. I anticipate maybe 12 meetings, perhaps over the course of a year or so with the Planning Commission to review chapters and to look at objectives and recommendations. And ultimately, that'll be passed on with the recommendation to the City Council. There's also state review, SEPA, the environmental, and also the commerce review, and possibly an environmental impact statement needs to be done before we go to the council for final adoption. Once it's adopted, then we're going to be turning around and looking at the land development regulations again, to implement those new policies. And I
Okay,
just wanted to emphasize, yes.
I know Chairman Allen has to step off, he was saying, but he asked if your comp plan is on the website.
Yes, it is.
Terrific.
It's on the city
And-
website.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's really valuable is an outside perspective coming in and looking at things, especially when you have experience in other areas and seeing what the difference is. So can you share with us some of the things that staff at the city have looked at and thought, that's interesting about the comp plan, and just ideas about how you might want to suggest changes to the comp plan?
Yeah, it's a huge question.
No commitments here. just
I've
opinions.
worked with comprehensive planning for a couple decades in Florida. They had something called the evaluation and appraisal process they would do every 7 years, which is very similar to what you call a periodic update. And it is an intensive public participation type process, very much parallels it. I will say this, that in the last couple of years, the state actually dropped that requirement to do that process, but I've done that in the past. Now, the comprehensive plan ideally represents what the community wants to achieve. I mean, and this is where the deliberations of the Planning Commission and the City Council really are the core of where we're going to be going with this and how we're going to create these policies. And I think enabling a good conversation is what staff will do. We're going to be basically setting it up, hopefully with good data and analysis, we'll get good decisions.
Mhm. But so,
Up in there.
yeah. Tom, also, are there things in the comp plan that you'd like to see changed? Or discussed anyway
obviously-
with the community?
You know, I was on the planning commission prior to this, city council, and I've been in council 3 years. And I've never been in the process, so I will be fully involved with that process. It'll be interesting to see when you look at housing shortages and affordable housing and the desire to keep our property tax base going, and we want active growth in the city that's really smart growth. So all I can say is as we proceed, it's going to be not a clash of ideas, but it'll be someone from my perspective. Remember, there's 7 people on the council of equal perspective, so we'll be mashing those together. So I'm not really sure. I do know one thing that I stay out of, but I'd sure like to know a lot more about it, is we've got some gems in this city. And as you know, John Wayne Marina is one of those. And I stay out of it in terms of what's going on there, nothing solid, but I'd sure like to really make that part of a comprehensive plan as we move out.
Sure.
We have a waterfront that's beautiful, and there's opportunity there at the same time. So I'm going to be listening intently to how we proceed in that area. And there's a couple of other areas like that too.
And I'll also say too, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Now, there's some things in the comp plan that are working well. And if we recognize that, we should certainly retain those things. But the question is, what do we want to do more or differently as we go forward?
I think it's one thing that's, when you have a process that occurred before, you tend to be, well, let's just do the same process with updates. The other flip of that coin is to just can it and do it from the start. The answer is definitely in the middle. To think that we can all of a sudden come up with a process that supersedes any that preceded it is kind of folly. So I'm looking forward to how that process works. I'll be an expert in 2025.
Yeah, that's great. So we have 2 people that have raised their hands. First is Colleen Robinson. Colleen?
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, City of Sequim. I just wanted to say that over the past year, starting in October of 2021, I attended many city council meetings and planning commission meetings. And while it was a much longer process than my impatient self was sometimes pleased with, I am very grateful for the outcome. Steve has been absolutely amazing to work with. He landed here, I met with him the first week he was here and said, this is what we need in our community. This is what Habitat's prepared to do. And I just wanted to give a really heartfelt thank you for allowing me to learn about the process, teaching me, and as I said again, the outcome for multifamily. And then someone earlier asked a question about, you know, how many of these can you fit on lots and how close to town? So Habitat now owns over 10 acres that is less than a mile from the center of town. So yes, we do consider, that's mostly why we don't build in counties and, you know, more outside of city areas, because some of our families don't have transportation that we work with, and they need to be able to get to schools and shopping and jobs and work source, which is now here in Sequim. So we are very close to town. We had our first planning meeting last week. And we're very excited with our Habitat team, not the City of Sequim team. We have a lot of work to do before we submit plans to the city, but we had our first meeting last week, and we'll be working with Jamestown Land Surveying, Jamestown Excavating, and LDC Corporation will be our engineer that works with habitats around the state. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So appreciative and looking forward to learning more about the process.
Great,
now
thanks,
that,
Colleen.
Now that we've done our part, how long is it going to take for you to do your part?
Well, the meeting last week said it'll take us close to a year to get to the point where we will have a plan to submit for permitting. So we have a lot of work to do.
Oh, gosh. We missed you
Well,
last night,
well, if there's
Colleen,
anything
in
we
the
can-
planning commission.
If there's anything we can do to help you along, by all means, contact my office. We can start informally looking at your ideas and maybe help you, guide you along.
That'd be great. Thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. We're going to get there and we're going to have some housing for multi-generational families. We're going to hopefully submit some fourplexes and then some duplexes, because not everybody can traverse steps in a townhouse. So we want to be cognizant of all generations and have a multi-generational community as well. Thank you. Thanks, Colleen,
Great.
for letting me ramble on.
Colleen,
Thank you.
Oh,
Colleen, are you
yeah.
moving your office?
Am I in my office now?
Are you moving your office?
Oh, we are.
saw
We're
a
moving
sign
the
in-
Sequim Habitat store. We're going to the old Decorate with Panache, which is 3 times the size of where we are now. So we'll even have a bigger presence of our store here in Sequim.
That's
Excellent.
great, Colleen. A follow-on question for you. How much more fundraising do you need to do to finish your project there in
So
Sequim?
for the phase 1, which is on Brownfield Road, right there at the exit of Sequim Avenue and Brownfield, we anticipate $3.2 million in development and infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, all the things before we put a shovel in the ground. And we have $1.5 million. So $1 million from Mackenzie Scott was a good start, but we have a ways to go.
Gotcha. Thank you. And
You
I
bet.
think Dale had a follow-on question. Dale?
Sure.
Hi, Dale.
Thank you, Colleen. I want to tag on what Colleen said about Steve. He's been great to work with. We feel really lucky to have him here. In 2018, Sequim did a bunch of work putting together an affordable housing action plan. It had 11 recommendations, a couple of which have been implemented. I'm wondering if there's been any talk inside the city about taking the next step with that affordable housing action plan and doing some more work on affordable housing, goal setting and specific objectives as a prelude to jumping into the comprehensive plan update. And if you haven't put that on the calendar yet, do you think that's a good idea to pursue?
It's been on the calendar. In fact, Charisse, our city assistant manager, she had made a presentation recently to the city council about that plan. And in fact, yesterday we had a conversation with one of our council members going through the list of those items and seeing what's practical, what we can do first and what we can do next. There's certainly some things that might have to wait for the comprehensive plan update, but there are certainly many things that we can be doing sooner.
So that's
Also,
that's
Dale-
this on your radar screen, because as we all know, there's a real housing crisis in the area. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Dale, this is Tom. The other thing on the study, I was actually on the planning commission when that was being worked.
Yeah.
And 2018 is a long time ago, so it's probably a good idea to perhaps consider reviewing a look at that. Even though a lot of time and energy was spent on that. 4 years is a long time.
And things have changed so much.
Yes.
I mean, there's just been, the markets have been twisted and turned in ways that nobody anticipated, obviously.
Not that the needs have changed potentially that much,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
perhaps the approach might be different. We're a whole lot different in this community than we were 4 years ago.
Mhm.
But
And the
yeah,
market,
we will definitely look at
the
that.
market, the supply chain, all these things, the
Yeah.
inflation, everything going on. I'd also want to point out a few other topics which might come up in discussion. We talk about climate change, carbon neutral, energy. We have an energy conference going on as we speak down the road here in Blinn, and I'm going to be down there for the next 2 days. So there are a lot of ripe issues for discussion and maybe inclusion in some way within the comprehensive plan going forward.
Great, thank you. Sharice, I saw you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to make a comment?
No, Colleen, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. So also, Darlene Shanfield had 2 questions and a comment, I guess, and asked me to ask them. The first are your plans built around water availability?
We just recently did a study on water availability. Ann Soul, who is been a longtime staff member, she's currently on a part-time status. She made that presentation to the city council, and it was a very positive one. With a very high growth rate, they anticipated that we would have sufficient water, I think it was for 20 or 30 years out. So it looks pretty good. And like I said, they used a very conservative estimate of a high growth rate, which isn't necessarily what's going to happen. We've been seeing a little less than 2% growth over the last decade or so per year. And I think she used something like 3 in her estimate to make sure we really accommodated what would be a high rate of growth with the water supply that's available.
Terrific. So
feel good about
Sharice,
that.
did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on a little bit too. So when you go through the comprehensive plan amendments and updates, the periodic review, you have to show adequate public facilities for how you would serve the population of Sequim, not only within the current city limits, but in the urban growth area for 20 years. So part of the analysis when you go through the plan update is to review your water, your sewer, all your services that you provide in the area as part of that update.
Great, thank you. So Darlene's next question was, are you doing anything to plan to discourage driving?
Discourage driving. Well, that could be, like I say, part of that more recent kind of thinking about climate change and carbon neutral is to reduce. I mean, one of the advantages of doing the multiplexes and higher density is you do get more of those opportunities for walking, and hopefully you design that into your community. We should really design our communities around people and not around cars. I guess it's kind of a theme I like to sort of see in our thinking about how we look at some of these new projects. Mixed use is something which is getting some real traction around the country, which I think we can have some good opportunities here to not just build subdivisions with lots, but to actually build a community center and build around that center. So it's a very walkable area. There's a lot of potential in the eastern corner of the county there. The tract that's next to John Wayne is designated for that. And I think we have had at least one conversation that potentially could be an opportunity to see a project like that occur there. That would be an ideal location, and the comprehensive plan would certainly accommodate that type of a project.
Great, thank you. I'll let you get back to your slides.
Yeah, it's real quick. I just want to emphasize the public participation plan outline. This is generally what goes into a public participation plan. It's a lot of public outreach, a lot of interaction, advisory committees, and a lot of planning commission meetings. And I just want to make sure that the people that are on this call right now on this meeting are aware of that, because you're certainly the kind of people I'd like to see participating in this process as we go forward over the next year or two. And I just want to finish up and just say we're actively working, we're promoting quality development, we're trying to improve the range of housing, to clarify our development standards, streamline the processes, promote economic development, and get ready for this big comp plan update. So that's my presentation, and I appreciate you all listening.
All right, great. So I saw that Sherry Kidd had a question in the chat. Sherry, do you want to ask that, or would you like me to?
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to know how the number of Airbnbs was impacting the affordable housing stock in Sequim.
It's difficult to make a direct account because, you know, there's Airbnb units that are scattered throughout the community in the Dungeness area. There is available data to show how many there are, but whether or not those units would ever have been or could be affordable units is difficult to say. You know, renting homes is not it wasn't invented by Airbnb, but certainly they made it easier. There are units which people have as second homes and they rent them occasionally as Airbnb. A lot of people don't want to be landlords. I mean, they don't necessarily want to have the commitment to a long-term rental opportunity within their units. So it's a very difficult thing to measure. I think a lot of communities are grappling with that, and we certainly should be aware of it. But I don't know how to draw that line directly, make a real number-to-number comparison.
Got it. Thank you. Also, Lori Fazio from the Clallam EDC serves on the North Peninsula Builders Association. And there's been a lot of discussion in that group about the city's requirements, especially relative to the counties. And I know since Matt and Steve have come on board, there's been a whole lot of outreach to NPBA to try to understand their perspective. Can you speak to that a little bit? The comment I saw was that the building process is so far beyond the requirements that the county requires, and that contractors and new homeowners are moving away from building within the Sequim city limits because of that.
Well, I've heard a range of comments, and I probably neglected to mention the fact that in some of these code updates we've been actively reaching out to the Builders Association. I've gone to their office for meetings. We've invited them here on a couple of occasions, and I certainly want to continue doing that. That's been a regular part of my work for many years, being very closely affiliated with the Builders Association in preparing any of these regulations. Something I've said many times in public meetings is there's no point in adopting regulations if nobody's going to build or use them or what have you. Like the multiplex proposal we have now, I have several people that have contacted the office over the last couple of months who expressed some sincere interest in going forward with the project and have looked at what we've done and look and see that as being feasible. So I like to make that connection. I've had the opportunity in another county in Florida to implement some pretty major changes that implemented multifamily housing and cottage neighborhoods, these type of things. And I can point you to the internet and show you the projects that got built. And I think that's an important connection to make. And so I'm not sure, you know, it might be easier to build something in the county if you're just looking to build a single family house on a lot or something like that. I don't know. I haven't built anything in the county.
Land costs might be lower also.
Yeah, I mean, there's other factors there. And you also mentioned earlier the transportation and the services. I mean, the city's providing the parks, we have the bus system, we have all these access to the retail. You know, we're serving a large portion of the peninsula for retail sales. I mean, obviously, we're the ones that have the traffic and the roads and are accommodating that.
I think one of the things that Steve and Matt, I'm glad Matt's with us with his experience in process improvement. People sometimes think process improvement is just like, oh, let's do this a little quicker or something. to really do a good process improvement on any of the building permitting actions or whatever, you have to basically flow chart that. You have to get input from people.
Yeah.
You have to make sure you have the laws correct, so you're not bypassing law. Once you do that, you can actually look at a way. It might actually take a little longer or a little shorter sometimes, but it might offset a step that you can avoid later on. So I think we have the people on staff that not only appreciate process improvement, but actually embrace it. And I'm looking forward to that as we proceed through time.
We have something of a bottleneck now with our software. We really don't
Right.
have a sophisticated software for processing these type of things, and that impairs us to some level. I mean, we've gone virtual in our, we're not using paper very much. Everything is scanned, everything. So that's helpful. But we need to go to the next level with our software and have a more efficient software system. It allows for more collaboration in the reviews. It's more efficient for everybody.
Well, and probably speaking to that, I'll just summarize what I think both the mayor and Steve just said. The very first week I got here about a year ago, we had, I don't know, 10 different builders in, and we listened and took great notes, and then went and tried to fix everything that they mentioned. A lot of it was in the speed or the delays, the lack of speed in how we responded and what that was costing them, et cetera, et cetera. So we put an internal interdepartmental committee together and process improved, I think, like 12 different items that we identified in how to address that, and then presented that back to both the contractors and to city council. We continue to meet with the contractors every, probably quarterly, I would say, to get their input on things that we're thinking about and doing. On the software front, city council just approved use of some of our ARPA funds to try to upgrade so many things around City Hall that have been manual in the past. And so we have a contract pending with a really good vendor that will be coming in early next year. And we hope to digitize many processes, both the payment process, the planning process, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not just hopeful, but we will be presenting to council at their next meeting that contract, and I think we're in the queue to start implementing that as soon as the first of the year rolls around. So a lot of changes are coming, and we're, like the mayor said, working on process improvement all the way through all of that. So.
Oh,
So
great.
we're getting short on time, Colleen, but I wanted to make one final comment from city council perspective. And I can't speak for 7 people, but I think most people would agree, and probably most of the people in the community would agree with this. As we pursue what we call affordable housing or smaller homes at times, I think we are going to be bent on quality. We want people that acquire homes, property, regardless of size, to have an increase in value so that they can proceed through life with assets that help their future. And if anybody's out there with a 3,000 square foot home that thinks that we're gonna go down to 1,000 square foot, and it's gonna be a piece of junk, wrong. We want quality. We want quality appearance that fits into the neighborhood, whether that's infill or new neighborhoods. So I just wanted to say that.
Great. I see
Colleen,
Brad.
Colleen,
Yes, go
I'd
ahead.
like to jump on real quick, and this is really a celebratory coffee with Colleen, because there has been so much good work over the last year. You know, I know a lot of us pounced on Steve and Matt when they first showed up with our careabouts, and I really like to call it responsible housing plan, because people get snippets of affordable and they think, oh, people don't have cars and they can't afford anything and it's going to be horrible. But it's really we're changing and providing, I think, the right opportunities for a healthy workforce environment and focus. And so it's just kudos to everybody. The city has changed a lot. Our elected officials, our council, our commissioners have really learned along the way. And I think Habitat had a lot to do with that. And kudos to Colleen Robinson for helping along the way as well. And just if I could just make a selfish request, I want to give a little advertisement that the current Habitat for Humanity store is available for sublease, I think starting in November. So we want to try to fill that hole until our lease is up. So thanks so much.
Great, thanks, Kay. Also,
Thank you.
Brad put a comment in the chat that the North Peninsula Building Association will be having their building and remodeling show on February 18th and 19th, just as a heads up there for everyone. And I know, one of the areas of great need for our community for growth and for opportunity is we're looking at what do the different industry sectors pay is construction. And we have Susie Ames on, I see, and would love to hear about the current programs that Peninsula College has and any potential connections that that the college is making with the construction sector and any new courses or programs that might support expansion of the construction industry.
Great, thanks, Colleen. We do have a construction trades program at the college that's very successful. There is capacity, however, for more students to enroll. And I know our faculty members connect regularly with industry folks to try to give our students hands-on experience. So our folks can reach out to me and I can make a connection to our faculty member. They're always interested in pursuing internships and giving students that real hands-on experience. So that's a successful program that could use more visibility, I think.
And I did just get an email from the NOLA lobbyist, Josh Weiss, and he said that he met with Senator Vandeweghe, and Senator Vandeweghe said he will be putting forward a bill for the Olympic Peninsula to offer a pilot program regarding the electrical contractor requirements that starts July 1st of 2023, that says that any electrical contractor that wants to do anything commercial, so outside of residential, would have to go through a formal apprenticeship program, and the closest formal apprenticeship program is in Puyallup. So it's not very functional for rural communities, and the Washington State Labor Council really wants that to happen because they want to ensure that, I guess they're saying there's a higher standard for training if electricians are going to work on commercial projects. The problem with that, of course, is that as time goes on, we will be left with only residential. There is a union program out here, but of the 198 01 trainees, which is the legal term for people that are working to become electrical contractors at the commercial level, only 10 of those were union, and it's very challenging to get into that program. And we have Jefferson County doesn't have any union electrical contractors. So hopefully perhaps Peninsula College could be part of that pilot program where non-union electricians can be part of a have the formal apprenticeship training locally.
Yeah, and Colleen and I were emailing about this a little bit yesterday. I'll be really curious to see what Senator Vandeweghe's language looks like, because that sounds like a new model and a very exciting one. Our apprenticeship model in Washington State is broken, and it's broken across the whole state. And we are in a unique situation of not having a heavy union population, but even in King County that does, it's still broken over there. And particularly from the community college perspective, we get pennies on the dollar when it comes to providing the instruction that's part of an apprenticeship. So really curious to see what that project might look like. and
Yep.
we're ready and stand at the ready. Interesting that Colleen pinged me for this question, because I did just get an email from Mia Foster this morning that I'll just read you a couple of highlights from. So as most of you know, we have had an automotive repair program. We mothballed it, and now we'll be bringing it back with an electric vehicle specific component. We're working closely with our dealerships who've told us they are interested in a 1-year certificate, and then they'll go and take the education hands-on further specifically for their needs. But just looking at the email from Mia, she's looking at that auto repair space that we used to have, and doing some marine engine repair on one side of the space, as well as construction with CNC machining for cabinetry for construction. And then we're looking at starting a marine manufacturing program. So doing that marine engine repair, both on the marine manufacturing side, but also on the auto repair side. So
Great.
Some more to come on that. And I just saw the message from Brad. He just sent me a direct message. So we'll put Brad in touch with our faculty member. So thanks for the connection.
Terrific. Thanks very much, Susie. Yeah. Senator Vanderway is looking at Josh and Clallam EDC and potentially PC to write that bill. So we'll definitely get your input on what it should look like.
That sounds great.
Okay. Anyway, back to Steve and Mayor Tom Ferrell. I'll give you an opportunity, or Matt, to provide some closing remarks.
Well, I'd just put a shameless plug in for this whole group and this whole initiatives, knowing that we got someone like you, the EDC and your leadership and your staff that are looking at what are the needs and how do we grow this peninsula economically. As you identify those needs, we have both the high school and the local colleges working on filling those needs through a CTE and a trades, at least those types of needs. Addressing those, and that they then integrate that right into the community and to our workforce. So I mean that's really the whole continuum of how to fix or elevate a community, find a need and address it by trying to fill that need through training and hands-on. So I'm thrilled with it, and we'll do what we can as a city to support, that process. It's a good business logic and model. So thank you for everybody that participates in that.
Thank you, Matt, for all you've done in that space. The city's really supported the whole workforce training, career tech education component. Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor?
Tom?
Just one comment. I think Matt and staff would agree. This new council, or as the council progresses, we are very dependent and trustful of staff. They are the experts. They educate us. I think we debate quite often. I think Matt would verify that. But we absolutely trust the staff to give us their best. And when we have dialogue with them to clarify things, they're flexible. So are we. I think that's ultra important for the style of government we have in Sequim. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff.
Great. All right. Well, with that, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. This coffee chat has been recorded and will be on our website, hopefully this afternoon, along with the slides if you want to share it with anyone. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.